Hello, and welcome to Speak Honest. I am your host and certified relationship coach, Jennifer Noble. It has been my passion for over a decade to help women like you heal what's been holding you back from having the relationships you deserve. Are you struggling with a relationship where you can't seem to voice your emotions, needs, and boundaries without having it blow up in your face? Then you have found the right podcast, my friend. Get ready for practical tips, empowering truths, and honest conversations. Now, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Speak Honest. I am Jen Noble, and I am so excited that on today's episode, I actually have a special guest. I have Tannaz with Minutes on Growth with me, talking about nervous system regulation and all that she does in her coaching practice. Now, Tannaz is a certified life coach specializing in relationships, both with oneself and with others, as well as conscious manifestation. She has an academic background in conflict resolution law and counseling psychotherapy, and she combines these diverse skills to empower individuals to create meaningful connections and manifest their desired reality. My conversation with Tannaz was absolutely fabulous. I was so excited to get to have her on the podcast so all of you who are really listening can see and hear all of the different things that I teach from different sources. It's so important that you get your information from different sources. Please do not just listen to me. And I will say this all the time, but I want you to listen to it in someone else's voice, in someone else's cadence, with someone else's language. The way that they talk about things and the way that I talk about things will be similar yet different. And it's this way in which we can rewire our brains to really start understanding these concepts. So in my conversation today, I really dive deep with Tannaz about nervous system regulation. Now, we just talked about that a couple episodes ago and how to really regulate, why it's so important to learn how to ground and anchor yourself and where emotional dysregulation comes from. And all of that we dive into in different ways with my conversation with Tannaz. So before we get started on the episode, I did want to remind you that if you are struggling with anything in your life, if you're being emotionally dysregulated, if you're having an argument or a fight with your husband or your boyfriend or your partner, I want you to know that you can come and get a free coaching session with me on the podcast. So in addition to interviews and just little learning lessons that I do, I also do coaching calls. And the great thing about the live coaching calls on the podcast is that it allows for you, the listener, to hear someone else going through something that might be quite similar to you. In fact, if you go back and listen to some of them, you might get a lot out of those conversations because you might hear yourself in their questions. And when you listen from a outside perspective, then your body and your brain, they're able to understand it more. Because when you are the one with the problem, you're way too close to it, right? You can't see the forest through the trees. That's the whole point. And so I want to let you know that you can come on the podcast with me right here and get a free coaching call. So you come on, we go through maybe a situation or a specific circumstance that is going on that you're struggling with and you need a little bit of help. You just need that coach to help you get through it, give you some tangible, practical pieces of advice that you can use afterwards. And that way you get help as well as helping the other women in the community that would get to hear your story. It's so impactful. It's so powerful. And it's one of my favorite things that I do here on the podcast. So if you are interested, scroll down to the show notes and click on the link for applying to go on a coaching call. You'll fill out a couple questions. And if we think you're a good fit, then I'll send you a link to schedule a time with me and we'll get to chat and we'll get to know each other. And it's really great. And give you a little, I give you some goodies and some thank you gifts on the other side of that. But mainly, I just want you to do it because you think that this would be a great opportunity for you to get some help that you need. So if that sounds like you, scroll on down to the show notes, click on the link, come jump on the podcast with me. Let's get you the help that you need. And for now, I hope that you enjoy my conversation with Tannaz. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to get to talking to our guest today. I have the beautiful Tannaz on with me. And Tannaz, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Jen. It's so lovely to be on. So I am a relationship coach. I am training to be a psychotherapist. And my goal has always been to help couples build healthier relationships with themselves and then just help individuals help build healthy relationships with every area of their life, whether it's with themselves, their friends, their family members, their coworkers. And I guess it all comes from my background, which was in law and dispute resolution law and then family mediation. So I was on the other side of the equation, helping people get separated and divorced. And I was like, it just doesn't make sense. How do we start off, with butterflies, feeling so in love, and now we're fighting over who gets this plate or who gets material objects. And, so I was like, something needs to change. I want to learn about relationships. I want to kind of get on the proactive side of it. And I, after 7-8 years of uni and, law school and all of that, kind of did a 180, went into coaching, specialized in relationships, and decided to even take it a step further. And so just completing my 3rd master's degree in counseling psychology.
Oh, that all just sounds so fantastic. And I love hearing how you have 2 different sides of this. You've got to see couples at their worst, right? When they're just fighting over the little things, like you said, who gets this cup, who gets, this blanket or something like that. And you see this happening and you're wondering, where is this breaking down? And so I love to hear that. So you go on the flip side and you're like, let me get into this coaching world. I love that so much. And 3 masters, that is fantastic. I myself, we were talking earlier, going back to go get my master's, and it is not an easy feat. So you know what I would love to hear a little bit about, because I know I have a lot of listeners who are in this world as well. Lots of relationship coaches. I come from a whole host of them. In fact, we have a whole Facebook group together where we all train in the integrated attachment theory. It's an amazing community. I just love coaches. Tell me a little bit for you about what that journey has been like, getting into relationship coaching, trying to actually run your business, do all of that stuff, and still keep learning and growing. What's that been like for you?
If I'm going to be honest, it's something that naturally progressed over time. And so when I decided that I didn't want to be on the fighting side of relationships, on, the separation side, I was living in Dubai at that time and I was running a book club. And one of the girls said, she also had a background in law, and she said, why don't we go into coaching? I was like, I don't even know what that is. What is that? And so I went on Instagram and typed coach. I still remember. And I was like, okay, it sounds interesting. And I've always been studying psychology and spirituality. I was like, okay. And my archetype is a teacher archetype. I love to teach and just simplify complex concepts. So I was like, that's something I can do. I can definitely use these tools to kind of help people cultivate healthier relationships. And so I started the program, and then, I started taking on clients. This was around 7 years ago. And because, again, I love to study. And so I was just always studying, always teaching, always studying, always teaching. And, the business just grew on its own. I know that sounds a little bit, it had its fair share of challenges, but I think because it just feels so aligned with what I like to do, when that is to teach and to simplify concepts and to kind of be a non-judgmental rear view mirror for you, it didn't feel like work. It just felt like serving and doing something that felt in alignment with my values. And just along the way, exactly as you said, connecting with other coaches, brainstorming together, learning from one another. And then there's the whole business side of learning marketing, learning sales, and kind of wearing all these different hats throughout the day until you grow enough to have a team.
Yes, having that. But the entrepreneurial spirit, it has to be strong in a coach. But what I love to hear about that is I love how you also talk about the community of coaches, because you're also someone who's getting your master's, you're going into psychotherapy, and coaching and counseling, 2 very different things. Being a therapist and being a coach, whilst you can be both, and eventually I hope to be one, with what it is that you're doing, potentially you could have both hats as well. But we know that they're very different. Tell me what it is that you love about coaching and why you never jumped all the way into the therapist world.
I think what I loved about coaching at the beginning was how tools oriented it was, of okay, here are the tools, implement them. And I want to say this, I think the therapy world is really evolving and changing, and we're seeing that more in the therapeutic space as well, is allowing the client to be the expert, which goes against previous.
Yes, it's always, I know all the answers. Now you must listen to me. Very Freudian, right?
Yeah. So I think now with time, therapy is catching up. And again, the client is becoming the expert, which is great. But what I loved about coaching was that is the client was the expert and you were kind of just a rear view mirror and providing the tools and kind of being like the supporter, the cheerleader, holding people accountable. And again, just allowing them to lead and you're just there to kind of support, which I'm seeing now in the therapeutic role. And that's why I was like, okay, I would love to even have more tools at my disposal to share and be of more service.
I completely agree. I think definitely having a balance of the two, because I think we all also know a lot of quote unquote coaches out there that have no modalities, no experience, nothing, and they're just out there trying to sell their services, right? So like anything, we do our due diligence, and maybe if we have a mix of both, because yeah, there's some great therapists out there now. And that's what I want to do. I want to become a psychologist over time, both to kind of have that weight, that research behind my belt, but also to be able to help people, you know, in ways that you can't as a coach, but having that coaching in there. So I love that you're doing that so much. Now, you said something earlier, which I love to hear, which is you're very good at simplifying information. What a beautiful, beautiful tool to have. One of the things that I know you do really well is nervous system regulation. Is that right?
Yes.
So I would love for you. I love nervous system regulation. And also I talk so much. You should ask my clients. They're like, oh my God, Jen, slow down. What are you talking about? I need to get it all out at one time. So now that I have you on, I would love for you to simplify to anyone listening really why nervous system regulation is so important and anything else that you want to share about it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think just first of all, understanding what nervous system is. So we have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. One is rest and digest. So it's the state we want to be in when we wake up. It's the state we want to be in when we're eating, when we're sleeping. And then we have fight or flight, the sympathetic. And there is this misconception that we never want to be in that, which isn't true. It's, you know, when there's danger, that's actually the state that helps us survive. And it also being relatively in the sympathetic when we're working out, when we're at the gym, you know, when we really want to have that elevated heart rate. So they both serve us. It becomes problematic when we are in one state for too long. If we're constantly in the state of fight or flight, which is the state of either I want to fight you back or I want to run away, our body starts to experience perhaps chronic illness. It starts to go into freeze mode, and we're unable to live life intentionally because we're constantly in the state of fear, in the state of anxiety, in the state of overwhelm. Cortisol levels go up, which then cause more stress. And then with that comes a whole plethora of illnesses. So we want to learn how, in the simplest ways possible, we can bring ourselves back to a balanced state, to a grounded state, and we can live life from that place of inner peace. And so the breath is one of the easiest ways to get us into that parasympathetic state of rest and digest. One of my favorite ways is whatever you're inhaling for as many seconds, you double that for the exhale. So we can do a 2-4, we can do a 3-6, inhaling for 3, exhaling for 6. We can do a 4-8. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, kind of you'll build your tolerance, your lung capacity's tolerance for that. So breath work is a great way. Muscle relaxation is a great way. Taking off your shoes and walking on grass if you don't live in Canada, though, because it's frozen.
Right now, you would be walking in snow or ice. Yes.
You're lucky enough to be in a warm place, grounding, naming objects around you. So when our mind is racing, great way is to count the number, count the trees around you, count the things that you can see. Counting helps us regulate. So these are just the tools, but why regulate is because when we're in a regulated state, we can think better, we process information better. And from a relational standpoint, if couples are not in a regulated state when they are communicating, their mind can't actually process what the other person is saying. And so it's like you're talking to a wall. There's no purpose to that conversation, and you will keep having that conversation until you both are able to come from a regulated state, only then can your ears actually hear what's being said and for you to actually understand. Because when we're in that dysregulated, triggered state, it's all about survival. There is no such thing as a win-win situation. It's no, I need to win this to feel safe. And if I win and you lose, it creates power imbalance in the relationship, and that just triggers other issues. So
Yeah.
I just went on a whole
No,
slide.
that was beautiful. Thank you so much. I actually had just done a podcast a couple episodes before this about emotional regulation and why it's so important, and especially in women, how we can sometimes just get so dysregulated that we're just completely shut down. And we talk about the prefrontal cortex and why it all happens, but I love the way you visually explain things. And I think it's so important for people to get the same information from multiple sources because, repetition plus emotion, we want to get those neurons firing and wiring together with different voices, different ways of hearing things. So just listening to you, even I was like sitting there being like, oh yeah, it's such a good way to explain that. I love that so much. But yeah, there's no win-win. So there is no, why won't he listen to me? Why isn't he being rational? And I try to explain this to my clients too. I'm like, girl, you're not being rational either right now. Do you see this? Do you see what's going on? It's not just them. And so what do you usually recommend for people after they get regulated? So how is it that they're going to sit there? They'll ground themselves. They'll either do a breathing technique. They'll look around. I love counting colors. It's one of my things. And so then after that, what do you typically recommend for couples?
When they're coming back to the conversation. So from research shows us that when we are physiologically flooded and when we start to feel dysregulated, it takes a minimum of 20 minutes for us to regulate. So if you're in that conversation, if you're in conflict and an argument and someone says something, the other gets, triggered, there's dysregulation, asking for a timeout and going your separate ways. And I really want to mention this asking for a timeout, because if you just walk out of the room and you don't tell the person where you're going, especially if the other person has an anxious attachment style, which, a lot of you talk a lot about, they're going to start to feel really anxious. And it's not fair. It's not how we want to treat our partner, with respect and with compassion. So kind of just saying timeout. And, having, a hand signal or a word. I have couples that use the word apples, and they know when the word apple comes out, it means the conversation goes on a break. And you kind of go your separate ways, exactly as we talked about, breath work, taking a shower, splashing cold water, rubbing ice cubes on your wrist. I love that. And just when you're ready, when you're feeling calm and regulated, coming back to the conversation saying, let's try this again, right? And if there was a rupture, taking accountability for that. I apologize for my words. And sometimes my clients will be like, but my intention wasn't to hurt him. Yes, but impact matters.
Exactly.
Intention is 50% and impact is the other 50. So taking accountability for the impact of our words, setting that intention to repair. I apologize. How can we move forward? I'd love to hear you out. I'd like to understand this better. Help me understand. And just giving that conversation another go. And in a realistic, I also want to set a realistic stage of sometimes with my own partner and I, we have this 10 times in one conversation.
Thank you for bringing this up. The whole time I listened to you, I'm like, oh, I want to ask her about and help her normalize that it's okay to remove yourself from the same conversation 10 times. So please tell me more.
Yes, there have been conversations where I have had to go on a timeout multiple times because it's just such a triggering conversation. It's so sensitive. And when we're triggered, we kind of lose access to the part of our brain that knows how to express this better. My partner and I have been together long enough for him to know that, he'll turn around and he'll say, I want to hear you out, but right now it seems like you can't express yourself the way you'd want to. Go for a walk. And I'd be like, I'll go for a walk.
Don't tell me what to do. But at the same time, thank you. Yes, I kind of needed that. Yeah.
And vice versa. That's how we grow together as a couple, of knowing when to.
Can we stop down on something there? Because I think it's so important for my listeners to hear what a healthy, secure man sounds like and how he is allowed to help you through something and tell you, girl, go take a walk or something, right? I love you so much right now, but like, we are not listening to each other. That is actually incredibly healthy, isn't it?
So healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So healthy.
Yeah.
So refreshing to see.
Because having a man be able to say, it is so refreshing. Until I met my now husband, I'd either had men that shut down, walk away, or they kind of in their own anxious state give me whatever it is that I want at that moment. My clients and my listeners, they're listening and they've never actually heard a secure man be able to say something like, I want to listen to you so much, but I'm not feeling heard right now. And so I think either we both need to take a break or you need to go take a walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that kind of assertiveness, that right there in a relationship can be so beautiful. We can say that back to our partners as well. There's no problem. And probably when he said that, you got a little bit snippy, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Of course. He didn't say that thinking that's going to de-escalate the situation, but he saw long-term, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd love to hear that so much. So tell me what that was like for you and then how that brought the two of you back together.
I think also something that, allowed me to accept that is knowing, remember, like when my partner and I were getting engaged, my parents pulled me aside and said, listen, respect is the one thing once broken, it's really hard to repair. Don't let it get to any place where, you cross the boundary of respect. Control yourself. And so throughout the years, of course, I'm overall a pretty calm person, but, everyone gets triggered and they respond differently. But I knew that, okay, if something happens and you're at that point of breaking, continuously tell yourself, choose better, choose better. And so I had communicated this to my partner as well. And I think that really helps too, is to tell your partner what your triggers are, because we enter into a relationship with everyone has a baggage and it's so unique. Everyone's baggage is so unique. I might get triggered over something that means nothing to my partner and vice versa. So I had shared with him that these are the topics that, are triggering for me. These are what I'm sensitive on. So in the one argument that I can think of that comes to mind is when that was said and I felt really aggravated. Had he not known, he would have just looked at me and been like, what is wrong with her? Like, why is she reacting this way? But because he had information, insider's information, and the Gottman Institute always talks about like love maps and just knowing your partner, being curious with your partner. He was like, you need to take a break. You need to walk away from this conversation. And when he said that, it triggered that same voice in my head, my parents' voice and myself of choose better, going for a walk and coming back and saying, it took a while for me to come back. I'm not going to lie. It took a couple of hours.
Good. Thank you for being so incredibly honest about that. I think it's so important for people to see, even us like relationship coaches, listen to that, but listen to your self-awareness in it. Yes, it can take that long. It's not just 20 minutes. It could take hours. It could take a day.
Yeah.
It's so real. Yeah.
And when you're ready, because like I would come back and I'd be like, check your energy. No, I still want to like say something mean. So again, I have to like take a step back and you kind of check yourself over and over again. And someone said many years ago, and it really sat with me, and it was emotional maturity is acting on your values, not on your feelings. And I was like, okay, if you value respect, if you value compassion, cooperation, you are not going to act on those feelings of anger or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of had to check myself over and over and over again until I came back to the conversation and I said, I'm ready to try it again. And I explained that, when you said this, it triggered these specific feelings, which I know you're aware of it, but perhaps you don't know the depth of the pain for me. And, him taking accountability of, I apologize for the impact of my actions and my words, and for me to apologize for how I had reacted, and how can we move forward? How can we learn from this? And what worked? Did it work when I told you go for a walk? And just it's like constant negotiations, I feel like.
It really, truly is. And it's so, so important to hear that these happen within secure relationships. Because so often we talk about, the Gottman concept of like, we need rupture and repair in order to build resilience. And resilience comes with those many negotiations. Even the question of like, hey, did me telling you to go for a walk, did that actually work, or was that too much? Because it can say like, actually, no, that was too much. Not so harsh next time, please. But the difference what you hear in your voice and the difference what you hear in your energy and your whole vibe as you're talking, and I really hope people can understand this, is I don't hear any judgment, Tannaz. And it's making my heart smile because you're just talking. You're like, yeah, I was really upset. I was really triggered. Checked in with myself. Nope. Because you went from like a 10 out of 10 triggered. You can kind of almost tell, right? And then you just kept checking in. You came back. You're like, nope, I'm at an 8. So let me go back. Wait, hold on. I'm at a 6. But there's no judgment. There's no shame. There's no guilt. There's no, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I should be over this by now. This is a problem, or he's the problem, or I'm the problem, and this is never going to work, and he doesn't love me, and, I'm a mistake. All of these beliefs, if we let them in during our big emotional feelings, they just hold us down even further. But look how you were just able to work through it, come up and out of it. And that right there is it's so beautiful. And how do you feel now with you being able to do all this nervous system regulation? It's in your own relationship. And how is it making you feel now to be able to share this with so many other people?
Oh, wow. Honestly, I feel like I would use the word expansive because healthy relationships weren't modeled to me growing up. And I had an extremely avoidant attachment style. I mean, I pursued dispute resolution law. So you can imagine what my internal feelings were that, that the fighter in me and like going into family mediation, even though it was mediation, but still that fighting energy. And so to be able to do a 180 and stop entertaining dynamics that weren't aligned with, I would say, my values, my lifestyle, the vision I had for my future, and knowing enough to say, I don't know how to have a healthy relationship. I think that also takes a lot of courage to be like, because listen, we all love our parents, and our parents always are doing the best that they can with the level of consciousness that they had, with the resources that they had. And both realities can coexist. You can love your parents, you can love your guardians, and still know that they didn't model healthy relationships, and that's okay. And, to get to that place and like, I want to learn how to communicate. I want to feel that safety and that closeness, and getting to a place where you do finally feel it. It's like, it's so possible. So that itself makes you feel warm. And B, to be able to share that is like, I don't want people to think, because sometimes I love to go on Instagram and read comments and like on reels about relationships and be like, it doesn't exist. Like, good men don't exist. All men cheat. And I'm like, that was me. Like literally like 7-8 years ago. That's exactly how I thought. And so to be able to change that narrative for myself and knowing that, okay, if I decide to have a family, when I decide to have a family, their narrative is going to be different.
I love that so much. Oh, such a beautiful place to wrap this up, Tannaz. Oh my goodness, it is to change the narrative, and that it is possible, and that we can do this relationship thing, even though I never thought it was possible either. I could tell if Tannaz and I can do it, I'm telling you out there, you could totally do this too. Now, tell us, Tannaz, where can people find you? Where can they learn more and get these big, massive topics simplified more?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm on all platforms at Minutes on Growth. So Minutes and then ON Growth. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, website. There's actually a free ebook that I have on my website on 11 tools for nervous system regulation. So you can just download it. These are super simple tools. I actually have videos of some of the tools on my Instagram just to kind of show you how it is. But really, if we can just get one message that I could leave is if we can get proactive with these tools, so like we do them on a regular basis, we kind of expand that window of tolerance so that, when life's inevitable challenges show up, whether they're in our relationship or in our professional life, we are able to respond from a more grounded place and navigate it with a little bit more grace and ease.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope everyone goes and they check out everything and everyone knows how important it is. I think that you need to get a coach out there. You need to get someone that's on your side, someone that resonates with who you are and what you need and whatever that looks like. If that looks like myself, if that looks like Tannaz, if you're needing someone else, if you're needing someone with a different personality, or you're looking for a male relationship coach, whatever it is, you can reach out to me. I'll help you find someone. That's what is most important here. Because, all boats rise with the tide, right? If we all start healing our nervous system regulation, then honestly, we don't have to work so hard to work on ours, because hopefully someone else is also nervously regulated around us too. It's a win-win-win, everybody. It works out so well. Thank you so much again for coming on the show, Tannaz, and I hope to be able to speak with you later.
Thank you, Jen. It's a pleasure.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that conversation as much as I did with Tannaz. I just think that she is such a lovely person, and I love getting to chat with her, and I loved her story about her argument with her partner. What a beautiful, real moment to really get to see that even us relationship coaches, we struggle in our relationships. When you become secure, it doesn't mean that you never have arguments anymore. It means you work through them. Remember, I talk a lot about how we need rupture and repair in order to build resilience in the relationship. And that's exactly what happened between Tannaz and her partner. They got in some sort of disagreement. There was a disconnection, a rupture that happened. She needed a couple hours to calm down. And when she came back, they respected each other, to listen to each other, to understand each other, to hear each other. And then that built the repair, which eventually built the resilience in the relationship. And it's so, so beautiful. And I just want to remind you that if you are struggling with any sort of rupture in your relationship, you want to jump on the podcast with me, I would love to have you on. I would love to give you a free coaching call so that way we can get you the help that you need. Jump down to the show notes. There should be a link down there that says apply for a coaching call with Jen. Click on that link and come jump on the podcast with me and help yourself and help out all the other women in the community that get so much support from these coaching calls. Now, I hope you all have a beautiful week. I will speak to you next time. Take care. As we wrap up today's conversation, always remember that healing is a journey, not a destination. And it is an honor to be a part of your healing journey. If you want to dig deeper into the topics we covered today, be sure to head over to our show notes, where you can find all of the valuable information mentioned in today's episode right there. And please remember to rate, review, and subscribe if you enjoyed today's podcast. Your feedback means the world to us and helps others discover our podcast. Until next time, remember to speak up and speak honest.